So, welcome to this Jigsaw 24 webinar, which is about working remotely in DaVinci Resolve. I'm Sebastian Khanlo. I'm part of the technical pre-sales team here at Jigsaw 24. Here with me, we've got Jamie Dickinson and Chris Bailey, and I will let them introduce themselves first, and then I will go through today's format.
Well, Chris, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Hi, guys. Afternoon. I'm Chris Bailey. So I lead the technical pre-sales team at Jigsaw 24, and I'll be presenting a little bit later after Jamie.
Hi, I'm Jamie Dickinson. I'm a freelance trainer, online editor, colorist. I've been working with Blackmagic for a good few years now. And Chris, shall I just dive into the presentation then? Shall I share my screen first?
Yeah, so I think today's presentation is going to be sort of in two parts. So there is the first section, which is Jamie's presentation, talking about the different workflows you have for working remotely in DaVinci Resolve. Then Chris has one following, which is about some of the solutions that we offer at Jigsaw to enable remote working with DaVinci. There will be a Q&A in the end, and please do just write your questions as we go along. We will be answering some of them directly, or we'll pick up the most pertinent ones at the end as well. So Jamie, take it away.
Okay, I'll just share my screen now and rearrange my windows. So that all looks good. Yeah, basically, just a very brief look at some of the ways, some of the features in Resolve that will help you when you're working remotely. So the scenario of working in a facilities house that's got, the big machine room and the expensive computers. But if you're working remotely, your computer probably isn't as powerful. And how do you collaborate and swap timelines, grades with the people back in the main facility when you're at home on probably a lower powered, lower spec machine. So the kind of machines that we're talking about, it will run the range of maybe at the facility, it's got multiple GPUs, much more powerful than you're likely to find in a kind of home setup, perhaps. But Resolve it's quite forgiving these days of the CPU because it uses the GPU so much. My machine isn't that high end, but I did upgrade the GPU in it, and it does pretty well now for a not much investment. I've got a machine here in my home setup with a RTX 3080, but in all other respects, it's not a particularly good machine, and it works pretty well. Having lots of RAM helps as well, but you're unlikely to have a RAID at home, things like that. So we're just going to look at different ways that you can arrange your setup so that you're not straining any one point of these systems on your home machine. That's a quick look at the minimum system requirements. I've found that really I have got away with less than 2 gigabytes of VRAM, but it completely depends on what you're doing with it. And the CPU, as I say, is becoming less and less important. You can, if you've got a good GPU that's doing the debayering and the decoding of raw clips as well, so that may be an option for you, or you work with a transcode and then you can be on an even lower spec machine. If you're using Resolve Studio, in your facility setup, you might not even need Resolve Studio in your home setup. I mean, it would be better, but the free version will do an awful lot. And there's probably no benefit in going into buying multiple GPUs, because one powerful GPU for your computer will do an awful lot of work for you. Certain processes such as noise reduction only use one GPU anyway, so going to Resolve Studio so you can put more GPUs into your home system is likely to be overkill, and especially if you use some of these features where you can use proxies and other tips and tricks. So I'm going to open out a project here. We've got, if we have a look at, let me just rearrange the interface a little bit. If we look at these clips here on this timeline, I'm going to bring up my inspector. I'm just running my interface at a low enough in resolution so you can actually see it and read some of the menus. So you'll notice when I bring up the inspector, I lose the 2-up display here, but normally I'd recommend running at a slightly higher resolution so you can have the source, the timeline, and the inspector. So just don't be put off by the way that's disappearing. If I go to select a clip, the inspector now has some extra tabs in it, so I can have a look at what the file metadata is. I've got the metadata window as well, or instead, but I'm just going to keep on the inspector window here, just to draw attention to the fact that we've got 4K B-RAW, but don't be too keen to, because it's 4K, you have to work in a 4K timeline, because you don't. If I just look at my project settings down here, I'm actually working in a 1280 by 720 timeline. My monitoring that will be scaling that up just to a standard 1080, but that's kind of not relevant. You can't see my broadcast monitor here anyway. But my timeline is, whilst I'm working, 1280 by 720, and then at the last point before I either send the project back to the facility in London or wherever to be rendered, the last point before you export, if you need 4K, then you change the timeline. And just to demonstrate that, any work that I do here, if I were to go, for instance, to a completed grade on this timeline and select a window here, you'll see, don't know if you can see this very well, you can see that this clip here has had some work done. There's a little window tracking over there, and all I need to do is, if I change this resolution, change it over to there's a missing plugin here. If I change this over to UHD, I can change my timeline resolution, ready for an export if necessary. Just hit save, and basically you don't see any difference. So if I hit play, that plays. That window has remained tracked in the same place. And you'll see here, I think if I come out of loop, I think there is also here, that's all, you can tell that's all lining up properly. What you will notice is here, because there is a node that is doing some denoise, this is now straining my GPU. This is a very GPU intensive process, but now in a 4K timeline, this is slowing it down a little bit. I've got a pretty good GPU and it's doing okay. It's doing okay. The important thing to keep an eye on is, where was it? It was that as I change resolution, and I can flip back over to a 720 by 1280 by 720 timeline. Now it's only loading into any of its image processing is only working on that size resolution, and it should be a little bit more forgiving of your system. So do be aware that there's no reason that you need to work in a 4K timeline just because you've got an ultimately a 4K deliverables or a 4K a 4K source. Somewhere else that I think I could probably get this to work if I go back to my original timeline here on the edit page. If, for instance, I want to say, right, this shot here should line up better with this shot here. So what I can do, I'm working back on the 720 timeline. I can just highlight this and come into the inspector here, just to pull down the opacity just to line up. I want to scale up the car and the incoming shot. Make sure that one's selected there. The way I like to do this is to turn on the transform overlay there. And if I just line up with the anchor, I'm going to line up the bottom of the car tire. And then having moved the anchor, I can just put that over here, line up the bottom of the car tire on the outgoing shot, and then just scale up from there, something like that. Doing this very roughly. And then reset the opacity. So I've resized that and hit play, and that's all great. That's all scaled up, but it's accessing the original 4K material. So although I've done a pretty big zoom in on that, if the deliverable is 1080, then that's fine. And I could put the working timeline before I export, I could put that to 1080. Let me try that. And yeah, that still works. So that's all good, but it's accessing the original 4K material. The only time you've got to be careful about that is if you keep your timeline lower than the export setting on the deliver page. That's when it'll actually warn you. It'll say your timeline's only 1080, but you've asked to render at UHD. That's the only time you will lose resolution, and it warns you about that anyway. So what else can you do to speed up your machine? The very simple one is this one, timeline proxy mode. Currently that's turned off. If I put that to quarter resolution, and let's find a picture that looks fairly sharp, and if I just so you can see it, I'm going to pull this into be 100%. So you can see on there, which I'll just go into color. You can see because I'm at quarter resolution, then that's very low res, and it's a simple instant on the fly switch like that. You can put it back like that. And hopefully you can see that change in detail. If I'm not getting playback on my machine with timeline proxy mode, these are on the fly proxies. If I'm not getting playback, then I can just pop it into half or quarter resolution. I'm trying to make this obvious for you over Zoom, but you can see that's drastically reduced the amount of resolution that it's trying to cope with. So that's a really simple way to get your machine playing back in real time, because that's what it's all about. We want real time interactive experience. Make sure that's turned off. Now there's another way that you can work, and you may have noticed these menus here: optimized media and proxy media. And this is a fairly new feature for Resolve. If we have a look at the media that I'm using in my footage bin here, we can see that it's all 4K. Where have we got the, there we are, 4K. And this is the file path. But you'll also notice we have, do we have a column in here somewhere? If I haven't got it saved, I can add it in. There is also something for proxy media, and that's the file path there. And I can also add proxy as a column. So proxy is none, and media path is none. So what it allows you to do, you can generate optimized media, which has been in Resolve for quite a long time, but proxy media is more flexible. So I could just right click on a bunch of clips and generate optimized media, or I can generate proxy media. But what's interesting about this, I can also link to already generated proxy media. And this proxy media can be much lower res so that you can share it with people, and you can, you're not taxing the power of your system. And it can be produced anywhere. You can make it in Resolve by doing this, generate proxy media, or you could have rendered it out from anything else, really. As long as it's got the same real name, file name, and frame rate, then you'll be able to link to it. Just before I do that, let's go into the master settings. I think it's under here. So we've got proxy media resolution, proxy media format. Let's put that down to something really pretty low. And the optimized media options are still there as well. And the working folders here, generate proxy media is going to my E drive, and that can be anywhere. I can browse anywhere to that as well. That's the default project destination for when you hit generate proxy media. But as I say, you don't have to do that. You can have already made it, or somebody else could have made it for you on another NLE. So what I'll do now is I will select all of these. I'll make sure that I've got everything. Yep, now I can go, this took a little while to link last time. If I go link to proxy media, it has a little think, hopefully not for too long. And I've already made some proxy media, as it happens, on my E drive because I used Resolve to do it, but didn't have to. It can be, it can have come from anywhere. And is it going to do it? I'm going to get impatient now. Hurry up. I have no idea why this takes so long to just open out the window to ask me where it's going to link the media to. Perhaps this is, I'm too ambitious loading up version 17.3.1 is the current version. And let me just check. I know if I click on this, I bet you it's going to wake up and ask me where to save it. Either that or it's crashed completely, which will be embarrassing. I'm going to navigate to my E drive. Oh, there we go. That's really odd. There's something very strange about my system. So my E drive, proxy media will be in there somewhere. Link to that. And what have we got? There we go. Proxy, it's telling me the resolution in this column, the resolution of my proxy, so that I told it probably 1/8 or 1/16 resolution, and it's telling me where the file path is. So now back in the, say, let's have a look in the edit page. I can instantly switch up here rather than using the proxy, the timeline proxy mode. I can just switch over to proxy media if available. And yeah, I did it deliberately, extremely low resolution. So you can instantly see that is, that's playing back, obviously no problem at all. Let's just fit that to size. is playing this back without any trouble because it's using these tiny, lightweight files. And I can just then turn that off, and it's going back now to the 4K B-raw files. And so if going back to the scenario that I'm working at home, but somebody sent me a project from a facility where they've got all the storage for the 4K, they can actually export. This has always been in Resolve to export a project archive. So for instance, if I go export project archive, what this has traditionally done, it wants me to save it. What this wants me to do is just save out the archive. I'll put it to my desktop. If I won't do the save, I just wanted to show you this dialog box here. It would usually export the entire contents of the media pool and a copy of the project, so that whoever opens that project archive, they can then, they've got the entire project rebuilt, linked to media in this archive folder. But what's nice about this version of Resolve, you don't have to save the media files. You can instead save the proxy files, well, you get the choice of what you're going to save. So I've got no render caches, and I'm going to say don't save the media files. So you can be working on a huge project with a media pool, a project full of, we were talking about ARRI RAW or something, they're colossal big files. But if you've made those very low resolution proxies, just save that out as an archive, only save the proxy media, and then whoever downloads that, it'd be a fraction of the size of what it might otherwise be. They can download that, take that away, and work on it at home. So that's fairly small addition to the feature in Resolve 17. Really, really neat feature that. I won't hit save because there's no point in wasting everyone's time. Do stop, ask any questions if you have any questions, but I'm going to fly through some of these other examples of what's useful to keep in mind when you're working remotely. One thing I will mention about working with proxies is if I go to the completed grades here now, as I switch between proxy and if I turn on the proxy media, you might see that there is a color shift in some situations. So just be aware that, of course, you're no longer working with raw files. If you were making proxies of something that wasn't a raw file anyway, if it was just a big 4K a regular file but not raw data, then there'd be no issue. But if you're working with raw data and then you switch over to the proxies, then just keep in mind that when you generated your proxies, it's generated them as a snapshot of your project settings. So if your project settings here were different to perhaps your clip settings on the timeline, then you don't have access to these clip settings, basically. If the camera raw settings, if you're working with the raw, obviously you've got all of those. And if I flip over to the proxies, those are inoperable. Those do not work. So just be careful of that. What else shall we move along to? Other ways to make the proxy files. If we are using the raw, there's numerous ways to use the media management tool. That's a really, really powerful tool. If I select all of these and then go File, media management. You bring up the media management, and I can make transcodes of the clips. I could do it with the clips selected in the media pool or on the timeline, depends what you want to do. And I can make proxies like that, and just look at the difference in file size, 14 gigabytes down to 426 gigabytes. So that's, you might not want to put that on your Google Drive, but there's probably no problem with that. Just checking how I'm exporting these. Yeah, I'd probably use something like MXF and low bit rate, something like that. But it's 600 megabytes. So a lot of different ways to generate these proxy files, link them up, and then you need to relink back to the 4K when it comes to delivery. So I'll just cancel out of that now. Frame.io. Now, that is a huge thing for collaborating. The integration with Frame.io, if your client is either his or her home, or in the facility and you're at home or whatever, you can link up with Frame.io. Sebastian, how am I doing for time? I've got lots I could show, but I know we want to leave time for Chris and a bit of Q&A as well. But how are we doing for time?
Yes. So I think we may move along. I can see there is a question from Richard, which is about, if you accidentally grade the proxy footage, is there a way to copy the grade to the raw footage? And then I think after you've answered that, we will move along to Chris, and then we'll pick it up. So if there are things you want to talk about at the end, we can see if we've got time at the end.
Yeah, there's no problem grading the proxy footage. You just have to keep in mind that the way the proxy footage was generated is a snapshot of the project settings for the raw decode settings when it was generated. So if you then flip over to the 4K raw and you're still using those same decode settings, you're fine. If for some reason you change those decode settings, then they won't match. So the color temperature is decoded differently from when you generated the proxy to when you want to go back to the raw. Then you've got a problem. But apart from that, you should be fine. Chris, do you want me to stop my screen share, and then we'll let you talk about what offerings you guys have.
Right. Thanks, Jamie. Let me just start sharing my screen as well. I hope you can all see that. Just click on my confidence monitor. Afternoon, everyone. Hope you're all doing well, and thanks for taking time out to join us. I'm Chris Bailey and I'm the lead technical pre-sales consultant here at Jigsaw 24. I've been responsible for a lot of the remote solutions that we've been doing over the whole of COVID and a bit prior to that as well. And with me as well is Sebastian Khanlo, who's kind of moderating this as well, who'd be answering any questions. He's our kind of in-house Resolve guru and color expert. So any of those questions, please point them towards Seb. I'm going to take a slightly different scenario on this in terms of, I want to keep everything central. I don't want to move data around because what are the challenges of remote working? We have COVID-19, everyone's favorite subject, caused mass panic and hysteria, mass chaos basically for our industry and other industries. But what we couldn't do was effectively work properly and remotely. We do definitely have excellent ways to do this, but the golden goose has always been the third client playback monitor, and getting that color accurate has always been the challenge. And I'm hoping to show you a couple of things today of how we go about putting solutions together. Now, the other challenges are location and bandwidth, security, probably certainly in media and broadcast being really high up there. Software versus hardware solutions, infrastructure, whether up in the cloud, whether on premise, when we've got our big expensive Resolve system on prem next to our shared storage, client monitoring. It's just too many options, and no real clarity to any of this. And this is something we've been solving for 18 months plus now with various different solutions. And this is kind of where Jigsaw come in. We design fixed solutions and bespoke solutions around a set of vendors. So you're going to see a few different products in here. and I'm going to focus specifically on some, just because that's the demo I'm doing, just so you can see it on Zoom as well. We have a fully functional demo room here, and any kind of questions, or if you want to go into any more depth after this, please contact us. I've got a slide at the end just with our contact details if you want to go any further into any of that. So, what I'm going to be looking at is, keeping your Resolve systems internal, connecting to your high performance centralized storage, right? Maintaining your existing workflows that you're used to doing in the building, but doing it externally, remote grading and control. So grading it from your house with a proper color accurate grading monitor, or highest quality remote reviews for multiple people are dotted around the world or in different locations. They want to view your grade or your program at the same time. And obviously a really high part for us, security. No data copying, no data moving, just only streaming encrypted pixels, which I think is a really important part of this. And most of the technology would be, all the technology we'll be talking about that isn't Resolve will handle that. Again, lots and lots of different vendors. Again, I don't want to kind of touch too much on these because we don't have too much time. But the stuff that we're going to be looking at in depth would be stuff like Leostream, Teradici, leveraging Amulet hotkey, etc. There are other solutions out there for display protocols like DCV and remote Z Central Boost, or RGS as some people may know it, and Streambox, which is a really important component for the third client playback system. Oops, it's not. There we go. So if we start talking about Teradici to start with, so what is Teradici? So PC over IP technology was designed by Teradici. It is a high performance display protocol, which allows us to take a machine anywhere around the world and get high performance pixels streamed directly to us. And it should be like sitting next to it effectively. That's the aim of the game, really. And then they comes in software versions, which Teradici do for cloud access software, which is loaded on the machine itself. And then Amulet hotkey, who we partner with, we've had great success with them over the 8 or so years that we've worked with them for internal and external solutions for anyone who wants a proper air-gapped, secure external display protocol network. That's kind of how we go down. I mean, those guys kind of rock the military and stuff like that. So, you're always safe in their hands. A little bit about Leostream. What is Leostream? So Leostream is an agnostic broker, and what that basically says, it's like the gatekeeper. Effectively, you want to log into your remote system. How do you get to it? How do you leverage these high performance display protocols? You've got to get to it somehow inside your building, or inside your data center, or inside your public or private cloud, or your VDI. And we use Leostream for that. So you can bind it to your Active Directory. You can have your local users, and we use things like Leostream gateways and Teradici PC over IP connection managers. Again, if you want to go into more depth in this, we can certainly do bespoke sessions for you guys. But effectively, all the traffic goes through this security gateway and is fully brokered and audited, so you know that you're getting secure access. IT are happy, and everything's secure. Again, it's flexible and scale across multiple locations, so you can spread this stuff out across the world with a single pane of glass for public, private cloud, VDI, and and your physical big desktops. If you've got your big Z8s or your super micro Resolve systems sitting in the building, you still want to be able to access those. A little bit about Streambox. If you're not aware who Streambox are, they're probably the industry leader in streaming and when it comes to color accurate and grading reviews. They come in 2 different forms. So one is the Chroma 4K rack encoder, and the other one is relatively new, which is the Spectra software plugin, which I'm going to be demoing just so for convenience sake. Obviously, you can't physically see the rack encoder from here. So what is the rack encoder? A centralized rack. You can put that in your rack if you've got 6 or 7 grading suites or other things. You can route the SDI directly to that and use it as a centralized streaming hub. Basically, it can do complete full Dolby Vision workflows, which I'll show you a slide in a second. And full encryption. It's basically it's recreating the RGB spectra end to end. So if you've got an ISO 3146 or a Sony X310 or Flanders Scientific, whatever, in your grading suite, and you want it to look the same at home, that's what it'll do. It is using amazing Actal 3 and Actal 5 compression technology, which Streambox have, to give you that best quality grading reviews or third client playback monitor. Here's a quick example of how the Dolby Vision would work. So encoders using the CMU. So you would have your Dolby Vision master on your expensive grading monitor in the office, and if you want to do the reviews at home or you're grading at home, you could have your consumer monitor and your pro monitor showing both the PQ or the Dolby Vision Master, as well as your trimmed HD session as well. A little bit about Spectra. What is it? It's a software plugin, effectively, which runs inside Resolve, for example, as an open effects plugin. It can be run as a software as a service, and basically, it's more of a kind of OPEX model way of doing things. With the hardware side, you can do that in a kind of OPEX way as well. But it does give you 8, 10, 12-bit and HDR support as well, and bit rates up to 100 megabit. And again, these systems are all color accurate depending on what you're decoding at the other end. So if you've got the client end at the other end, if you want full color accuracy, you're looking at the hardware decoders to do that. But there are multiple ways to view these using free software players, iOS devices, etc., etc. And I'm going to show a brief example of that in a bit. Here's a kind of quick overview of what Spectra is going to look like. So here you have your on-premise or AWS or Azure cloud, with Resolve running, and your Spectra virtual encoder, which is running in the background with the OpenFX plugin on your laptop or desktop or VDI or your big grading suite that's already plugged into your SDI monitor. And then using on the example on the right, we're going to push this to Streambox Cloud. If we've got hardware decoder, we're going to get full color accuracy to that SDI monitor, or we can take these to the free software media players via the cloud as well. A little bit about what the cloud is. So what is Streambox Cloud? We basically send a stream up to Streambox Cloud, which uses Amazon's AWS backbone and fast ports basically for the DWM all around the world to basically do a centralized stream of your data in exceptionally low latency. It's basically assuring the first mile quality for adaptive contribution. It can automate pulling of live streams. You can include metadata and all those things. And I'll show you a little example of that in a minute. Again, as I said, we've got fully featured demo room. Again, we can do all these things remotely. We can give people access to our demo systems remotely to see what it's like and give them access to Streambox and stuff like that. So if you guys do want to see anything a bit further than the demo I'm going to show you in a minute, then please get in touch on one of those lines there, and we can certainly arrange that for you with your account manager. So I'm going to jump into a really kind of high level demo of that, which means I'm going to have to stop sharing my screen to share the rest of my screen. So sorry, just bear with me a second. Okay, good. I hope you're all with me still. Cool. So what I'm going to be demonstrating here is we're going to use Leostream to remote into a Mac of all things, which is running Resolve. Again, this could be a Linux machine. This could be a Windows machine. And I'm going to use my Active Directory credentials via Leostream to keep everybody happy. Don't want to save my password. And I get a pool of machines. Again, Leostream's a very deep product, which we can't go into right now. But what I can do is I can see I've got a couple of media composers here. We've got a couple of Resolves as well. I've got a Resolve on Mac. Just because Cloud Access Software has recently released the Cloud Access Software host for Mac, that's what we're going to use. So I've hit reconnect here. We should open the PC over IP plugin. Oh, it's open in the background. Sorry. There it goes. And there we go. We have a Resolve system with a display performance protocol, a high performance display protocol in PC over IP using the Cloud Access Software. I've got full playback. I mean, I hope that looks great on Zoom for you. It looks fantastic here. It's super smooth. I've got full control of this, and it's a joy to use. Again, I'm just using a software client here. That could be a thin client. It could be a laptop. It could be a zero client as well. There's multiple different ways we can do this. But for demo purposes, to keep this on one screen on my little 13-inch MacBook, you'll see things are probably a little bit crushed together. But we're trying to do the kind of best we can to kind of give you that overview. So what does this look like when we talk about the third client playback monitor and Spectra or Streambox in general? So if we take the color tab, for instance, again, I'm not going to do anything, you're all familiar with the nodes in the clip part of it. But how do I get this stuff to a remote viewer? What I'm going to do is I'm going to flip the timeline to the timeline view in the nodes. And what I have on here is an OpenFX plugin called Spectra. I can grab the OpenFX plugin here, just connect the node up to the inputs and outputs. And what we should see is it should connect up to this output here. So what we have, I'm just going to leave that playing. In the background, we also have the Spectra control panel. As you can see now, I'm completely tied in to whatever's coming out on that timeline, whether it's going through the color process or not. And you can see here I'm UHD 24p with RGB. A little bit overview of the Streambox control panel as well. We can set our network settings. So at the moment we're running just at a 12 megabit, just for demo purposes, but we can crank that up to 100 megabit if we want. Streambox's compression technology is like nothing I've ever seen. The secret sauce is something called Active Compression Technology 5, which allows you to do HDR, 4K, 12-bit, etc., etc. If we have a look at our transport, they use something called LDMP, which is low delay multipathing. So what that allows it to do is communicate with the decoder or the cloud server to make sure that these pixels and packets arrive in the right order and in right time without any kind of mistakes or anything like that. So it's almost like forward error correction on steroids. But we also have the ability to add a manual forward error correction if we do have any kind of sketchy networks on there. But it's completely designed for that first mile integration. In terms of audio and video, again, I have full control of what I want to show on here, what color profile, or whether it's going to auto detect what I'm getting. So I can put this in DCI, 444. I'm set to 12-bit of color depth at the moment. I've got my full frame rate, etc. Again, if you want to see more on this, please let us know. We can choose our audio codec. If we're not prioritizing audio, we can set to low bit rate, but we can do full PCM audio if you want to. So a good example of that is taking the hardware encoders and decoders, sending it into a cinema. And this is how a lot of these big OTT providers are doing their reviews, their grading reviews into a theater or onto their big expensive monitor from somewhere else in the world, from Resolve, etc., etc. So this is kind of the real high end of streaming when it comes to color accuracy. I'll get into metadata in a minute and what that actually means to people. I'm just going to scrub all this out because we don't need to do that right now, and how we apply that to the Streambox control panel. If we add encryption on here as well, I mean, the pixel's encrypted anyway, but we can have up to AES-256 encryption, 192, 128-bit encryption as well. I just haven't got that feature turned on the Spectra, but I do have on our big encoders, which are sitting in the demo room as well. We also have the ability to load presets. So I can say, yeah, I want to do a 12 megabit. I've done a successful 12 megabit to Netflix, for example, or to another post house or to a theater. And I want to save that as a good preset going forward, at a certain bit rate, whether it's going to be UHD, 4K, and it will take all those settings or particular settings that you want when you apply these presets. Spectra doesn't have to just work as a plugin for Resolve. We can actually use it to pick up NDI or from a Blackmagic card or something like that, or even from Avid or any other, or from Premiere as well, works inside those. But what we're concentrating on here is the Open Effects plugin, because being a grading system and Streambox being a color accurate grading thing to enable color accurate grading, this is kind of where we're at. So in terms of system, we can see what versions we're running, what the CPU is. This is a 2019 Mac Pro, which is a bit of a 16-core one with a Vega 2 Duo in it. So what Cloud Access software is doing is actually taking that graphics agent part as well and tapping into the GPU as well. So we have that as well. We can add features and remove features. We can activate very, very quickly, and we can show what features we're having on here, which is running on a quick demo license here at the moment. But you can see we've got full 4K HDR 444. We haven't got 16 channels of audio, and again, my encryption isn't on here. So how do we apply what we've got in here to Streambox? And here's where we start talking about Streambox Cloud. I could point this directly to a decoder, straight to a decoder. If it's native behind a firewall, I could point it its public IP address, and that would go directly to that decoder quite happily. But what if we want to send to more than one person at a time for review, or you are unable to port forward your router, which in most instances would be the case. It's a bit of a hassle, isn't it? So let's just take here. There we go. So this is Streambox Cloud. And what this allows us to do is create a session and basically send this to customers for them to be able to pick up on multiple devices, including the full fat hardware decoders and the software decoders as well. So what I'm going to do on here is I'm just going to create a new session. I'm going to delete this one just so we can start again and you can see this from scratch. What I'm able to do in here, I'm just going to call this one demo. What I can do is I can do a timed session. So I could say 2 hours, 4 hours, etc., etc. And I can even archive this. So it will record this into the cloud for playback later. If you want to look at the review again, you can absolutely do. On the big hardware encoders, you have the ability to do annotation as well, to mark shots and save out stuff. Again, if you want to see that in a bit more depth, then please let me know. So we save that. Right, and what have we generated? So we've basically just generated a session. And what is that session? This has given us an encoder DRM and a session ID. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this encoded DRM here, and we're going to copy it, and we're going to put this into our metadata in the, it's already populated for me. It's very clever, isn't it? And what we're going to do is we're going to apply that to the DRM session. We're going to give it a title. Yep, we're in London. I'm the reporter, and Seb can be the producer today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply that. And what we should be able to do now is hit start stream. And what that's going to be do is pump up to the cloud. And if we pop over to Streambox Live Cloud now we can see something's coming in. It will generate a thumbnail at some point, and that's basically it. We can see we're at 12 megabit. Again, we could crank this as high as we like. You can see that it's a Mac Pro 2019. We're running in Actal 5 mode, so we've got full support for HDR. And again, we haven't moved any media anywhere. We're basically just streaming pixels up to the cloud. And what's being generated here is a session ID to go with it. Again, I can send this to the American server, I can send it to the German server, and there's servers dotted around the world. I can even route this feed to a physical decoder. So if I have decoders that I've got dotted around various buildings, I can actually say, hey, route this to that. So I'm going to push it. But what we have a lot of problems with is networking when it comes to port forwarding somebody's router. So this is where sessions come in. So I can basically take the session ID and send it to someone and say, okay, you can open that in your Streambox media player or on your hardware decoder or your iOS device for the applications running there. I'm going to give you a really brief example. So I can basically click on this, and what's it going to say? Do you want to open the Streambox media player? Yes, I do. And what we're going to do is just going to take a second to connect to the Streambox cloud, and then we should have our finished product coming out to the media player. And there we go. It's just buffering up. And there we have if this was a hardware decoder, a full color accurate review. Again, you can have 30, 40, 50 people around the world looking at this same stream at the same time. I think it's just cut to black, hasn't it? Yeah, to be continued. Perfect timing, thanks for that. So what we can do is let's just scrub this back to the beginning to show something else in here. And there we go. We have, again, we can get down to sub-second latency as well. But the idea of Streambox is to maintain that RGB spectra from end to end. Again, we haven't massaged the settings in to be completely low latency here. I mean, we're probably a second and a bit maybe, but and we're kind of doing it on the same system, which is not really advised. But if you were to pick that up on there, if anyone's got the Streambox media player available and have used this before, feel free to grab that session ID if you want to look at it, and then play that back on your Streambox media player. So that's a kind of little overview of how a different way you could do it was, again, keeping that centralized system, not moving any media around, getting proper UI access to your Resolve system and streaming that color accurate output. Again, there are multiple different scenarios and ways that we can run those, whether it be from zero client. And, I'd be more than happy to kind of do these bespoke sessions with you guys. Seb can go a bit more into Resolve and the kind of Dolby Vision workflow side of you. And we can show you how this works remotely and what it actually feels like to get your hands on it as well. I said, if you're ever around kind of London and you want to kind of pop in and see our demo estate and have a look at our fancy monitors and big Resolve Advanced suite, please feel free to pop in. So I hope I've left enough time for some Q&As from people. That was a very whirlwind tour of a remote Resolve session. So have you got anything on there, Seb?
Yeah, we've got a few questions. So there's one from Doc, which is about LucidLink with DaVinci. We've used it. I have tried it with DaVinci, and the thing with LucidLink, so for anyone who isn't familiar with LucidLink is basically a way of using cloud storage in a way where you can mount it as though it's just a standard kind of a Thunderbolt drive that you would connect directly into your machine. And it allows you to basically stream your files from the cloud in real time, depending on what cloud provider you're using and your internet connection as well. So I have used it both for kind of offline proxy work and to test it out for online. For offline, it's no problem at all with most kind of Lucid setups as long as your internet connection is adequate. And I've tested it a bit with things like kind of crazy stuff with 8K Red Raw, and if you have the good enough internet connection, and if you manage your settings so that you maybe don't go for the full kind of 16-bit full res premium debayering in DaVinci, you can work with high resolution, high bitrate media. Again, it depends on the way you set up your Lucid estate, what cloud provider you're using, your internet connection, and they do have some clever features like you can cache certain folders or certain files to your local hard drive if you've got a fast enough local hard drive. So we have tested it, and it does work for a number of different workflows. Yes. And then there is one about triggering Dolby Vision to QC other monitors. So in terms of triggering Dolby Vision, which to do that, you really need the Dolby ECMU, because that's the only box, so far as I know, that will trigger the Dolby Vision tunneling. I mean, Streambox can do some of that, but to actually do Dolby Vision metadata tunneling over HDMI to use the consumer chip on a Dolby Vision enabled television to basically view the final output as a consumer would, using the decoding that a consumer television has. You do need Dolby hardware for that. So there is no Ultra Studio that can do that.
Yeah, because the Streambox Chroma, the big Chroma encoders can pass that Dolby Vision metadata between them. So that's what you end up with at the end. There's a question from Simon as well. Does Chroma work when a local Bob is in use, so the editor still has their video and audio? Yeah, absolutely. So the same with Spectra as well, and with the Chroma, you'd basically route your SDI to your Bob. Well, it'd be coming through your Bob up to your screen, and then out to the Chroma encoder as well. So yeah, absolutely, just down the line of your SDI monitor, effectively. So yes. Cool. Is there any other questions from anybody?
There is. What sort of quality can a remote client expect if they don't have a hardware decoder at their end? From Adrian. Yeah,
that's a really good question, Adrian. So the quality is excellent. It's just about color accuracy, really. Again, if you'd like a kind of bespoke session on seeing Streambox and seeing what you'd get at the other end on the media players and the little nodes and stuff like that, we can absolutely do that. The quality is very good. Their compression is absolutely phenomenal. It's just about color accuracy. The closest you can get to color accuracy, about as color accurate as you get, is an iPad Pro. So if you run the Streambox media player on a new iPad Pro, that basically gets as close as you can get to without having to have the big decoders for color accuracy. But there are different size of decoders that Streambox do. They do just an HD one. They've got the Chroma Halo, which is slightly smaller, which has an HDMI output. I believe it has a single SDI output as well. And then obviously there's the big Chroma 4Ks that can give you the quad out, and it's got 12G on it as well. So if you're going to your ISO or your Sony or your projector or something like that, that's probably the product that you'd need.
So there's a question from Richard. Unfortunately, I can't speak to any development that Blackmagic may do with Dolby, because I'm not from Blackmagic or Dolby, so unfortunately can't talk to that.
Chris, it sounds like this Streambox solution is something you could spin up and test with pretty much no commitment or no investment, because you don't have to have a hardware version. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, with Spectra, yes. So Spectra can run as a software as a service. You can activate, you can install Streambox Spectra on your system and then license the features that you need, basically. So let's just say you're just doing a HD, for instance. You don't even need HDR or anything like that, and 2 channels of audio. But that's what you want to do. People want to review. That's nice and easy. You can just enable those features, or you can enable the 4K HDR features as well. Bearing in mind that the Streambox Spectra plugin is running on that CPU as well. So again, depending on what you're doing, bitrate, etc., it would depend on how much processing power you have as well. With the big encoders, they can work in this supplemented software license model as well. So you can buy the physical box and not license it, So you buy the physical box, you get a month of all of the licenses for free. But if you let's say you want to do an HD job this month, you can buy the HD feature pack and add that to your Streambox 4K encoder, and that's available. If you want the HDR option, again, you can do that with that, or you can buy them outright as a, you know, as an all singing, all dancing unit. So, you know, we have customers who have them dotted around locations, which makes no sense kind of renting, because they're constantly in use. So there are many different ways to do that. Where are we? Maximum amount of viewers able to stream on Streambox? Not really, no, because it's all managed by the Streambox cloud. So it's effectively an Amazon CDN. So think of it as in that scale. What you're actually streaming from is AWS, really. So it is, you know, this is what a lot of kind of, you know, big CDNs are coming from. So yeah, it's almost limitless, yeah, to what you could take that single stream down on. So what price is Spectra? Dave, yeah, if you want to kind of hit us up offline off that, we can get you in touch with someone from sales to talk about pricing around those things. What about HLG, Seb? Can we cover
that? So yeah, this remote work we've been talking about with Streambox and the like works as well with HLG as it does with PQ based HDR. So it's pretty much the same. It's just as good.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah. So don't know if you had any things that you wanted to mention, Jamie, that you didn't get to.
No, they were just more little demonstrations of Frame.io. Let me see. Just some of the features that let you compare if you're working at home on a project and someone can just send you something. It's all about sending lightweight files across the internet. So a new feature that Resolve has, again, they didn't make a big deal of it, is that you could just export a Resolve timeline. Simple thing. Export the timeline. It's 108 kilobytes is the one I just sent. It's got all the grades, all the you know, it's that one up level from sending someone an XML that they have to then conform and check against an offline. Just send them as tiny little a DRT file, which is new. You also DaVinci Resolve bins as well. You can export those and import them. So lots of small little features that really help this whole working remotely. So that was the main thing I was going to show. But that Spectra plugin, that looked really interesting. That looked very cool.
Yeah, there definitely are quite a lot of features in Resolve 17 and Resolve generally. Just make it easier now to share assets between people without actually having to send you an XML or entire project.
Yeah.
I think that's it. So thank you to everyone who joined us. I hope you learned something from it. If you do have any questions, feel free to contact us on the details that Chris shared before, and we will share this recording on our website and our YouTube channel, I believe. So thanks again. And thanks, Jamie, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank
Jamie.
you. That was great. Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.